Sound! Yes! Thank you everyone
Hey!
for waiting, and sorry for the delay, the technical problems, but it's not that big of a deal.
You
You
wouldn't
only
think
missed four
Sinistar would be
minutes.
selfless enough to fix technical problems,
Yeah, thank you, Sinistar. I really do
but
appreciate it. We have Anthony Carboni on the show
hi
this week,
guys.
and Anthony is famous. He's been doing
Nope.
videos about video games for, geez, since you were just a lad, since you were just a teen, right?
Yeah, what happened is I got Pong when I was 2, and
Uh-huh.
I immediately invented the internet just to talk about Pong. I just took it
That's
up a
so lucky
notch.
for us that you did that. Thank
It
you.
was
I
all, yeah,
really
you wouldn't have thought that it was such self-absorbed motivation, the invention of the internet. It was basically just to get my face out there to talk Pong
just a
strategies,
Pong
do
chat
some
room.
Pong Let's Plays, top 5 Pong moments.
You are a host on Rev3 Games. You do a
Yes.
show called New Challenger, which is about video game reviews
Yeah,
in a
so what
way, but it's a different take on it. Explain your show, please.
Okay,
Do it.
so basically what'll happen is early in the week, whenever a new game comes out, I'll do a review, just like, any other game site. And then on Thursday, I have people into the studio to review my review and just give
Ah,
a different opinion on the review and kind of like talk about the different points I might have missed or gotten wrong or things like that. So, for example, last week we had Arthur Geese on from Polygon and a bunch of game podcasts. He's a real smarty, Arthur Geese. He's like a
yeah,
smart dude,
it's
and
smart. Mm-hmm.
he came on and we talked about our reviews of Fez, and it was fun. And then sometimes we
He's the
drink
review
and play video
editor
games.
at oh, I'm
Huh?
sorry, what? I talked over you.
Oh, that's
What?
okay. I said, huh?
Huh?
John Holmes, are you John Holmes?
Hi.
Does this make it better or worse? Better, better or worse when I
that
do
makes
this?
that makes it a little worse. I mean,
Oh,
if,
okay.
if the
Better
goal is to
now?
see you.
Now better?
Yeah, it's very
Now
nice now.
now worse. Just so I'm where, just so I get where we are. Okay, cool.
That's, that's right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so Arthur came on and we talked about Fez, and sometimes we just have people on to play games and drink, and just sometimes we have musical guests, and I don't like to be tied down, man. I want to do whatever's
Yeah.
fun.
You're young. You're a bachelor. You're not married, I don't think.
I'm not married anymore.
It's time to live it up.
As of this
That's
morning, I signed the
smart.
papers.
And
Fuck her.
people who don't know, because not everyone knows about video game journalism. They just pay
Hmm.
attention to the video games. They don't care about us that much. Polygon is the new company that's kind of a super group of people who've worked for video game blogs.
I
And
ca-
Arthur Geese is their reviews
uh,
editor, right?
Phil Kohler is there. I think Arthur's the reviews editor.
Yeah.
Phil Kohler's there as the assistant. Both the McElroys are there.
Oh, little
Yeah,
McElroys.
dude, I love the McElroy. It's like when they announced Polygon, I was like, oh, okay, this is like when the USA had a basketball team for the first time in the Olympics, and
Oh, yeah.
we sent like Michael Jordan and like we sent just like everybody, and we were just like, good luck, Bosnia. Like that's what Polygon is. Polygon
Yeah,
is
it
just
was
like
Charles
really good
Barkley.
people all together.
Yeah, yeah. I wish them well. They haven't really started up yet, have they? Or did
They're
they
kind
do
of
it
like
already?
so they're the same company that does The Verge. So right now if you go to
Hmm.
theverge.com/gaming, you can see all their stuff, and then eventually they're moving to polygon.com.
Right, right, right. Yeah, I look
It's gonna
forward
be
to that.
good.
Some of our ex-Destructoid alums have applied for work there. I hope they get it if you're listening. I'll keep
Yeah.
that anonymous, though. So
I
anyway,
hope
back to you. You're the important one.
Oh, am I?
You are a big deal. People may not
No.
know that about you, though. You started doing what I... Yeah, you're a secret deal. You're like a
Uh,
secret jackpot. You
mm,
just reach in there and
I'm like
pull
a
out the
Cracker
coin.
Jack prize. I'm like a decoder ring.
Yeah, you even worked on a video game based on your show Bite Jacker.
Minimally.
At one
I minimally worked on it. It was a really, really great game, and it was guys from Secret Base. They just did a game for iOS called Toby and Friends Hookshot Adventure, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, they're really, really great. It's mostly a dude named Ray Tio, and he came to me. He was like, he just sent me a screenshot because he had watched the show. He sent me like a screenshot of the game, and he was like, "Is this awesome? YN?" And I was like, "Yeah, go ahead." So he developed this game, and along the way, the only thing that I really wanted to make sure of is like the show Bite Checker was like video game, like it was all about indie and downloadable games, and it was kind of like a review show and a news show, but it was also like a sketch comedy show. Um,
Right.
so I really wanted to make sure that the game had the same voice as the show, and the characters were the same. So Ray and I worked out a deal where he could do anything he wanted to creatively with the game because he's just a genius. And all I really wanted to do was write all the dialogue and the text that was in the game, so it kind of had the voice of the show. And I think it came out really well.
Yeah, it's you. You're the star of the game with the co-host of Bytejacker. Is that right? And you meet like Super
John.
Meat Boy and Commander Video from the Bit Trip series. I think Mr. Destructoid is in there somewhere.
Mr. Destructoid's in there. There are a lot of little like nudge, nudge, wink, wink video game references in there, which I think are great. It's a zombie game, but I mean, I think we can all not hold that against it.
Yeah. I think the zombie thing has gotten so bad, it's now flipped back to good again.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so. I think so. It's just...
This was like this game came out like last year, a year and a half ago, or something like that, and so I think we were kind of like in the midst of zombie fatigue. But
it was
it's still
a little
good.
bit exhausting then. There were a lot of people doing games for it that doing zombie games that didn't really care about the zombie genre. But your game was much more about video games in general, I think, video game logic. Very nice work on that. Would you write another game if someone was like, hey, write a game now?
Yeah, I think I totally would. I think I think everybody who does gaming journalism or works in a kind of a peripheral or side part of the video game industry always kind of dreams of developing games, a little bit. Whether we dream of like actually doing it as a job or whether we just have a couple cool ideas, I think we all feel that way. And I have tried a couple times to sit down and kind of learn to code or learn some of these things like Game Maker or whatever. And I just find it to be horrible. Just horrible and monotonous. And there's nothing I want to do less than talk about math to a computer all day, every day. But
it's so hard. Yeah.
It's so hard. And so, but I would love to write one again or do kind of like scenario planning or something like that. But, that's like walking into your first band practice and being like, all right, I'm the front man. Right?
Yeah, it's true.
It's like, no, you do all the work, but my idea is like really good. No, it's like, fuck you, dude. It's not. And you also don't know how to do anything.
You have to get famous enough that you would be the selling point. Like the Penny Arcade guys, they just are like, make a game about us, and it actually works.
Yeah.
People actually buy their game just because they're in it, which is pretty...
Some people bought it. A few people bought it.
They're making a third one, and I think the third one actually looks more interesting than the other two. It's a new developer now.
Yeah.
It's just a shameless Final Fantasy tribute.
Was this the guy who did the Cthulhu game and the
Beware, Dtoid Games.
There you go. Yeah. So that was him.
He gets rid of names in the start. Yeah,
he did that. He did a Cthulhu thing, and then he did Breath of Death, I think, which were the Xbox Live indie games. So he's really good at like the 16-bit retro funny parody thing. So I think it's a good fit. Although I did love all the writing in the first two Penny Arcade games. The gameplay was monotonous, but they were very clever.
Oh, sure. That guy, Tycho, is his name?
Mm-hmm.
He's a funny writer.
Yeah, he's really good.
Yeah. Speaking of 16-bit, that's the big thing I noticed at PAX this year. We were at PAX together.
Mm-hmm.
Did you notice how many games seem to take their cues from both the limitations and the kind of style of 16-bit era games?
Oh, totally. And the indie scene has always been really, really into that. And that's always because it's an easy aesthetic to do with minimal resources. It's not an easy aesthetic to do well, but the cost of entry is less than doing like a 3D game or like a really beautifully hand-drawn like cell shade, whatever, like
sure.
Pixel art is kind of like the way in. And I think what's interesting now is not that so many indie games or small studios are doing pixel art or 16-bit stuff, because I think people have been doing it for a while. I think the interesting thing is how much notice these studios are getting now compared to 3 or 4 years ago. So I don't think the aesthetic has changed, because you think all the way back to like things like Cave Story or, which was the first big indie game that anybody ever was like, whoa, one guy, he did it. Look at that guy. Right. And then it like took the world by storm. So it's they've always been kind of Super Nintendo looking a bit, or Super Nintendo through a sort of nostalgia filter.
Yeah,
but
not
I think
quite as much detail a lot of the time. But not even just the aesthetics.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of mean like the thinking. Like to me, 16-bit thinking is well, we'll have big enemies, we'll have a huge area to explore, we'll give you like 50 different weapons, because the NES couldn't even handle that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And to me, Cave Story, Mega Man 9, those are games that are more NES in terms of size and the amount of stuff you can do.
Yeah.
I'm thinking more of games like Hell Yeah, which doesn't look that 16-bit. It looks more like PS1, like Astal or something. But it's thinking 16-bit. It's a big Metroidvania where you kill, I think, 151 different monsters by torturing them and making them smell your butt and stuff like that.
They're great. The guys at Arcado are great.
They're completely nuts. Yeah.
Yeah, there was stuff like that. There was, of course, there was Super Time Force, which was super huge. And yeah, I guess I do. Now that you bring that up, I guess I do kind of see that a lot of people are doing it. And I wonder if it's just sort of like the clever realization that everybody had with sort of like the Wii and the DS and things like that, where like a lot of adults will jump in for nostalgia gaming if they're not big gamers. But then you still have like a lot of gamers who are totally fine with games like that because we grew up with them.
Right.
You know, so we're good with it because we're still into video games. People who aren't as into video games anymore are like, oh, I remember that. That looks just like video games did when I was a kid. I can play this.
Right.
And I've heard that a lot about
younger than us are like, this is a huge game for $10, so I'll buy it. I don't really care how it looks. I know a lot of people, 15, 16-year-old readers of Destructoid who play Super Metroid for the first time and are like, this is the best video game ever made. It wasn't just for us that it felt that way because that was the pinnacle at the time. It is actually just a really good game. And I see a lot of people chasing that, like Guacamelee.
Yeah,
people hate
the
it
drink
when I
box
say that,
game.
Yeah, did you see the Chozo statue in there?
I did, and it was great. And I was like, "Are you going to be able to keep calling that a Chozo statue? Like, is that going to be cool?" And they're like, "We may have to change it before we release because it's exactly a Chozo statue." And like, they're like, "Oh my god, it's a Chozo statue!" Like somebody says it in the game.
In the game, yeah, the Goat Man. It's like, why'd you break my Chozo statue?
Yeah,
man turns into a goat. Yeah, I bet they can get away with that. Nintendo, have they ever sued anyone? I'll have to look into that.
No, Nintendo.
No.
They've never threatened legal action against anybody.
They let the Mother 3 guys get away with just translating that game.
They did, which surprised me.
Yeah. I think that they have some awareness of not looking like douchebags a little bit.
Well, and they also, you know, this is probably after they crunched the numbers and they were like, nah, it's not worth it to even try and translate it and put it out on Virtual Console. Fine, have your fun. You know?
Sure. They were never going to do it anyway. I wonder if there's anyone who wants to chat with us. We've had a good chat so far.
We have. I would love to chat with some peoples.
I've seen a chat. You seen a chat in the chat? You seen a chat there in the chat?
Is there a chat? I'm looking on a Google Hangout. Should I open up the Twitchy at the same time?
There is a chat in the left-hand button. In the chat room.
In the chat. Oh, hello.
Yeah.
There it is. We got a question over. We got a question over Twitter.
Oh yeah, what is it?
Dude wants to know. Who's it from? It's from McFly Gold.
Oh, good old McFly Gold. Hello.
Yeah. He wants to know how we feel about developers locking saved games so they can't be backed up.
Oh. Okay, I think I know what he means. You're smart. Do you know what he means?
I don't think entirely.
I think he means so if you save your game, you can't like copy that saved game in case you save over it or something like that, or share it with a buddy or a buddy's buddy, two buddies.
You know, I never did a lot of save game sharing, or even when you remember in the PS1 days, there was like you could go online and grab somebody's save for a game and unlock everything. You know, you could get those card readers for your memory card for the PS1. I never got into that just because I always like to just play through myself. And I feel like save games are mostly locked to your account on a particular platform, right? So I'm okay with it.
I think so.
You know, like anywhere I log in as me on my Xbox, all my saves are there, especially now that I have cloud save. If anything, I think they're opening up and freeing up save games a little more than they used to. They're making it a little easier for me to like go places and sync things and be a man of the
compared
world.
to the Super Nintendo days when it's just a battery in your cartridge and whatnot. I think on the Wii you can still steal other people's save games. I think I did that after I got burgled last year. So it was weird. But the first thing I checked,
Ham-burgled or like regular burgled?
I got legit burgled out
Oh.
of the house, out of the home. It was a home burglary.
That's awful, man.
And it was all right. And the first thing I checked was where are my Pokemon? Where are my Pokemon? Because that was like 10 years of Pokemon collecting.
Yeah.
It didn't steal my Pokemon, which is fine. All my virtual goods were safe. All my actual physical goods that I can just replace with money were gone. My PS3 was gone. My Wii was gone.
Ugh.
So all my Wii save games were gone, which actually depressed me more than the actual games being gone. I could just go buy the game again.
Yeah.
But I can't just pay someone to play through Super Mario Galaxy 2 for me again so I can get to those really hard levels. So I think I re-downloaded most of that stuff off the internet.
Yeah, I'm trying to think that like there's nothing worse than a corrupted or lost save. And
It really is.
so that multiplied across every game that you own is probably, I'm amazed that you didn't have a nervous breakdown. I
It
remember
was the support of the human beings. They had like a charity drive for me and stuff like that. Like
Oh, wow.
reached out to me. Sony gave me another PS3 kind of. Nintendo gave me another Wii kind of. It was very nice of them. I really. And you see this plate? Speaking of people being nice to me, I don't know if people on the show saw the plate.
Oh,
Looks just like me, right?
it does.
Yeah, it's sleepy and confused. This is from the show Dtoid that I do with Jim Sterling. I don't know if you've seen it. He talked about how he wants to rock my world and change my whole life,
Oh,
change me from the inside out. He says things like that to me. And at one point, he said he wanted to eat steak and rice off of a plate and have my face slowly be revealed under his steak. So he's like craving eating steak with my face. And then one of the listeners to the show, a woman named Crystal White, actually made the plate for me and Jim and for herself. So
did you say the
No,
heir
we
to the
really
Crystal Light fortune made that for you?
that is so much more polite than what Jim said. Jim said something rather what's the word for disgusting and pornographic together? There's a word for that.
Oh,
Pornisgusting?
I thought that was a type of dinosaur. A porn is gusting.
We're getting some questions in. Johnny Viral wants to know if I invented time travel or some sort of growth serum, because that is definitely an older version of Chris Healy. He thinks you're Chris Healy.
Chris Healy.
Yeah, he's a famous
Huh.
guy. Isn't he?
Nope. Is he? You tell me.
I think so.
Let's stop.
Yeah.
Let's stop bluffing with one another that we know who Chris Healy is. Look up Chris
Pretty
Healy.
sure I know who he is. He's a speckled hunk. He did a show.
According to Google, he works at Providence, Rhode Island Real Estate. That's the top one.
Maybe he spelled it wrong. And Bakamano wants to know, what does the plate say? Sorry about that. I should have read that before. So this is what my life's become, it says. Because when Jim Sterling, it's a real thing, Anthony. I don't know, you can be on the show with us sometime, or you want to listen to it. I don't know if you want to listen to it.
I could be.
He'll spend like a half hour talking about all the sometimes he's really direct and sexual, just like, I'm going to pull your pants down, and like for a long time. And other times he'll just be like, I'll just be in the corner.
Yeah, Scoville used to tell me that you get that Podtoid was kind of anarchy.
It's pretty predictable at this point, I think.
Okay.
And hopefully that's still making it a decent enough show. But Jim is just he really means it in a way. So he consistently says some really troubling things to me every week. He wants to do to me and stuff. Then we're going to E3 in a few months, and something will happen to me.
You guys splitting a hotel room? I'd go for your own hotel room in that case.
It's funny you should mention that. I was just working that out. Let's do another question. Yeah, you see that question? You should read it. It makes me feel so great. Sega Tasha Nashiro, number 1.
Oh, Sagata Sanshiro.
Yeah, that's how you say it.
Do you remember? Oh God, I remember those commercials. If you could bring back an old hardware manufacturer to do a new console, well, considering that the guy's name is Sagata Sanshiro, and I mean, obviously that's a loaded question, coming from
Sure.
him. But yeah, I would say Sega. I definitely wouldn't say bring back the 3DO. Like, that's not a
I
thing
was
I'd
thinking
do.
the TurboGrafx. I have a weird TurboGrafx fetish myself.
So, I mean, I do too, but here's the thing. Sega was always borderline Japanese inaccessible. You know what I mean? Like, they always had this vibe of like, you are from an other place, you know?
Right.
You are not quite, you're kind of doing a game that somebody would like over here, but you're doing it strange. And I always love that
Right.
about Sega.
Like
You know,
Revenge
that
of Shinobi has
Yeah.
Terminator in it, but he's like a weird green Terminator.
Yeah,
who,
or even like when you get to Dreamcast era stuff, you know, and things like Jet Set or things like sports games that Sega would make. You're just like, oh, you've almost got this, but you're doing like a weird Japanese arcade version of this, and I like it. I like that sort of
Right.
heightened sense of reality, you know, that Sega games always used to have. That AM2 feeling, you know, that sort of
Yeah.
shiny, cartoony, like, yeah, I dig this, but it's still kind of accessible. Whereas I think NEC and Hudson were always just like Japanese as hell, right? Like,
Yeah.
I used to
Yeah,
work at a
that's
game store when we had like a bunch of Turbo used games, and you know, I used to love like my Turbo Duo and things like that, and I would always try to show customers who came into the store like Duo games, and they'd just be like, "What are you trying to show me? Like, why, like, why would I like this?"
Yeah, like Bloody Wolf and Dungeon Explorer and stuff like
Oh
that.
God, Dungeon Explorer was so good, so
Yeah,
good.
music is fantastic in that game. I still think about it. I think you make a strong point though. When Japanese developers try to be Western, but do it a little bit wrong, but at least are trying to make a game for you, but still they can't help but be themselves. That's when I like their stuff the most. And likewise, I
Yes.
feel like what we were talking about earlier with the developers trying to do, with the smaller developers trying to do 16-bit style games, they're trying to do Metroid, but they're still Western. They're still American or European or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So that flavor still comes in too. So
Do you know what
whenever
do
developers,
you know what I think the best example is of a Japanese company doing like an American sort of thing? There was like a
What's that?
version of or just, you know, it's the best example of why the Turbo was just a little too weird for people, but people who are hardcore nerds probably love it. There was a version of Madden Football for the Turbo CD, and it had
Really?
it had video cutscenes, but it was very clearly just like two dudes like around the office, like from EA or whoever was like localizing, just two bros who were like super thin and like shouldn't be football players, but they were in helmets, and like you would do like a tackle, and you would see like this video of this terrible video of guys in like the field across the parking lot from their office just like ugh.
That's amazing.
And
Really?
and we used to watch it and laugh and just think it was the best thing ever in video games, but it's the worst thing ever in video games. Which is
but it's time
why
to bring that back. Yeah.
it kind of is, but I think that's what the indie scene is doing in like a tongue-in-cheek way, which is
Right,
as
okay.
much as we need it to come back. You know,
Yeah.
like when
But
you think
in
of,
a knowing way that they know
Yeah.
that it's terrible. Yeah.
whereas like these guys were just generally like, let's throw some video into this game and it'll be awesome and you'll, you know, be football players, and it's just like, no, you're like two kids in a Walmart with a flip cam. Like,
I'm gonna look that up. You think it's on YouTube? Do you still have that? You could be like the sole owner of that.
God,
have
I
no
don't
idea
have that.
they made it Madden.
We should look that up. I'm sure YouTube has that somewhere.
Ah,
That's something they've got.
I'll try to find it.
Yeah,
Another
let's
man
look for that
wants
later.
to know. Oh, how do the things Jim says make me feel? This isn't really a question for you, Anthony. I feel bad. Maybe you know how this is. Have you ever had a platonic friend, someone you've known for years, someone who professionally is, above you? Like Jim has a huge following by video game journalist standards, and I have like kind of a smaller cult following. So a lot of people say I'm a sidekick. I don't take that as an insult. That's fine with me.
Okay.
But he's like, kind of dominant, and he's saying stuff like, how's your butt feel today, and stuff like that. I'm like, pretty good. And he's like, yeah. Have you ever felt a man's tongue in there? And I'm like, oh boy, I can't believe we're talking about this, boss. And have you ever had someone do that to you, Anthony?
No, but I was in like a dinner theater production of Disclosure, that movie with Demi Moore and
Demi
Michael
Moore?
Douglas.
Uh-huh.
like a regional dinner theater version of it, and I played the Michael Douglas character, so I can sort of understand your motivations because in that movie
Right.
he felt very, this is not true. I'm making all of this up.
I totally believe you. I totally was picturing you with the slicked back hair and like fake wrinkles and the
I mean,
suit.
can you imagine like dinner theater trying to do the virtual reality bit at the end? Like,
That would be so good. Yeah, it amuses me when Jim acts that way. To answer your question directly, I feel totally impervious to Jim actually sexually assaulting me. I feel like I can escape from him if I have to, and therefore it's just words, and words can't hurt me as long as they don't mean anything truly disrespectful. And he actually respects me, I think, secretly.
how long are like the showers that you take after the podcast though? Like to get the feeling off you? Like 30 minutes? Like do you use like a pumice stone to just kind of like scrub it all away?
Well, the thing is, I've led a pretty weird life as it is. I've worked around a lot of people who don't have any sort of filter for the things that they say. So I'm
You
used
seem
to
to be
people.
comfortable amongst the odd. You seem to thrive amongst situations where there is a weird vibe. And I'm not saying you seek them out or it's the situation you're best in, but I've noticed you're very, very comfortable dealing with it.
Thanks. Yeah,
Just in the few times that you've been around and I've been around, and especially at PAX, you were very able to, because they're like, PAX is mostly cool people, but then just like any gathering of thousands and thousands of people, there's some weirds, there's some odds.
Sure.
And you seem to do really weird with the odds.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I relate with them. I know how it feels to not fit in or not have the same sort of ideas of cultural norms. I can fake it pretty well, but I'm pretty weird too. And it's easy for me to, as long as someone isn't like aggressively trying to make my life worse, I can usually connect with them on some way. I think.
Right on.
For you. Here's a good question for Carboni from Frog Boss. Oh, I skipped you, Ninja President. Let's do you first. Ninja President asks, what's the best import game you've ever played? We've actually talked about this before. I think you're going to say what I'm going to say, but well, you go first.
So there are a couple that were really... So the first one is probably the most important to me. I don't know if it was the best, but I, growing up, was always had video games. I was always the kid. Every weekend, I would go to the video store and I would rent a game and play it through until I beat it. That's like how I spent my weekends. And then when I was 15, 16 years old, I walked into a game store and there was something playing on the TV, and I was just I couldn't wrap my head around it. It was just the most amazing thing I'd ever seen. It was different than anything I'd ever seen. And I was like, well, what is this game? How do I get it? And
what was it?
The clerk behind the counter was like, this is a game called Knights. It's for the Sega Saturn. You can't get it right now. It's only in Japan. You would have to import it from Japan. And I was like, but that's possible. And they're like, yeah, it's possible. And I was like, okay, how much does it cost to get a Saturn and import this from Japan? And they told me, and I was like, all right. And I walked out of the store, and I started just like mowing lawns and working part-time. And 2 weeks later, I walked in and I threw the money down, and I was like, I want a Sega Saturn, and I want you to import Knights for me. And the guy it was a different guy behind the counter, and he's like, okay. He's like, well, you can take the Saturn home today. Is there anything you want for it? And I was like, what is that on the... And it was just like, what is that on the TV? And it was Guardian Heroes.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, and that just, all of a sudden from there, I was just like video game nerd. And the Saturn was just and 2 weeks later, I actually wound up getting hired at that game store.
Oh, okay. Is that the one that had the Turbo Duo and stuff?
Yeah, because something about seeing those two games, because at the time I wanted to draw comic books and I wanted to be an animator, and that's what I was like kind of working towards. And so seeing something like Guardian Heroes, right after seeing something like Knights, when I was just like such a huge fan of like Japanese animation and just sort of fantasy and stuff, like I was just like, that was it. That like pulled me in. So right. Knights was probably the game that Knights and Guardian Heroes were the games that got me into the direction that I am today. And then after that, at that store, working at that store, I could import anything I wanted. And I imported a lot of Saturn stuff. Silhouette Mirage, Ikaruga. I actually have my binder of Saturn imports like here with me. I don't have my Saturn, But
I want to see the imports.
I keep the imports, and I think I just have some of them. I think some of them are actually like boxed up. But I used to import anything that looked remotely cool. I remember importing the special edition of Galaxy Fräulein Yuna, which was like
what is that?
Galaxy Fräulein Yuna is just this weird anime that I've never seen, and it was kind of like it was a visual novel, which is the worst thing in the world to import because you can't play it, and there was barely game facts. We barely had fucking modems, and I'm just like, what do I do with this? But it was a collectible edition. It came with a binder and it came with art, and so I was like, I'm gonna get that. And we used to import things for the dumbest reasons. Hold on, let me see if I can find some of these.
Yeah, go look for it. I'll keep them occupied while you do. Wow, that's an amazing story. Anthony and I, it's weird how many parallels we have. I'll tell him when he gets back. But I was also going to be an animator for a while. I also bought a lot of Saturn games because they had so many 2D hand-drawn.
All right, let's see.
Stuff. You got it?
Yeah, I got some. So here's my Sonic Jam, the Japanese.
What the hell is Sonic Jam?
The Japanese version of Sonic Jam for the Saturn. It was all of the Sonic games except for Sonic CD, so all the Genesis ones, and then a bonus land that was like a 3D land that you could run around in that was based on the Sonic Extreme engine that they never released Sonic Extreme, remember? So,
oh, you're kidding, really?
Yeah, so we imported that so we could see what Sonic Extreme would be like, but it wasn't like a real game. It was only like this little world where you could run around. It looked like Green Hill Zone. And you could go into like a little theater and watch all the animations from like Sonic CD, or you could go in and see art galleries and stuff. So I got that just to have it.
Man, what a near miss that was. They just didn't quite make a Sonic game for Saturn.
It's the dumbest, and it was the dumbest. It was the dumbest thing. And if you've ever read like any of the in-depth stuff about why it didn't happen and like the feud between Sega of America and Sega of Japan, it's like real insight into just like how Sega just started quickly falling apart. You know? Yeah. And it's one of my favorite stories in video games. This is Silhouette Mirage, which
that came out here, right?
That came out only for the PlayStation.
Oh, right.
So
that's what I had before.
The only way to get it on the Saturn was to import it. Let's see what else. Pocket Fighter.
Oh yeah, I got that on PlayStation as well.
Which over here was released as God, what was it called over here? Did they call it Pocket Fighter over here, or was it Gem Fighter Mini Mix over here?
I think it is Gem Fighter Mini Mix, yeah. Super Gem Fighter Mini Mix 2 Turbo or something like that.
Yeah. Fighters Mega Mix.
Oh yeah, that came out here though, didn't it? That's
eventually, yeah. We used to just not wait though. Like working in the game store, we used to just not wait. We'd be like, "Fuck you, I'm getting it now." So this is.
Did it cost a lot more money to do that?
It cost a lot more money. Like now we're used to games being like $70, $80, sometimes.
Pretty rarely. They're usually 50,
like you buy special editions or whatever. But this was always $70, $80, and this was like in '97.
Right.
And so we were just
like
it was like working for the railroad in the 1800s in America, where like you would work all day for very little money and go home, and the robber barons owned the general store that you would buy all your stuff from, right? So like the company was, you would work for them, but they were still making money off of you.
Right. You were their best customers.
And that's what it was like working at a video game store, because we would just turn around and put all our money back into video games. This is the for Galaxy Fräulein Yuna.
That looks great. I would have bought that.
She's wearing a jetpack on her back that is also a Sega Saturn. So
totally would have bought that.
Yeah. And then for whatever reason, I guess this is because I couldn't wait, the Japanese Marvel superheroes.
Oh, yeah. Did that come with the 4 megabyte RAM card?
It did. And what was hard is like the Saturn to play. I'm not gonna play the 6-year-old kid who shows you all his Pokemans. But that's a bunch of them. I'll put that away.
Awesome.
Yeah, so the 4 meg RAM card on the Saturn, you had to get a special one that would play imports and give you the 4 megs. Because to play imports on the Saturn, you have to have a cartridge. So I had to get the special cartridge, which I think I still have too.
It's called like the ST key or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I still have one too.
There was a different one that had the 4 megs on it though, and it was white. And I can't remember what
I swapped them. I did a cart swap.
Oh, dude, I was always worried about the swapping though, because I was afraid that I was told that you could burn out your cartridge slot. I don't know.
You're much more responsible than me. I bet you're right. Another guy, Uzi Does It, wants to know what we think of the Neo Geo. Do we like the games? I like about 6 of the games a lot. There's great Neo Geo games, I would say.
Shock Troopers was a good one.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, I was really hooked on Magician Lord when it first came out in the arcade.
It's totally
which was a terrible game.
No, it's not good, but it looks great.
Awful.
And it just did things you couldn't. That's when I was a graphics whore. Was like 16-bit to 32-bit days. It was like,
well, because it made a difference then. It made like a quantifiable difference. The difference between watching something 8-bit and something 16-bit is being able to put yourself in the world more. Right, because there's such a difference in detail between 8 and 16. Now it's like you show me, you go to a site like Lens of Truth, and it's like, well, here's the difference between the PS3 and the Xbox and the PC, and as you can see, the shadows are, and I'm like, no, I can't. Shut up. I mean, I can if I'm looking for it, but shut up.
Sure. Like, in terms of because you and I used to want to be the person who made the art all on our own.
Yeah.
We've never been the guys who want to like make the pockmark textures more glistening,
No.
Like, it's actually got depth now. You can see into his acne where the pus once was. I never wanted to do that.
It's like being like told that hey, congratulations, you're working on Deus Ex Human Revolution, and then you're like, oh my god, I can't wait, and blah blah blah. You're the guy who's gonna do all the soda cans on the desks. It's like, congratulations.
So
and you're just like,
I feel so sad for those dudes. Some of them love it, though. Some of them go home to their wives and children and be like, look at these cans, honey.
And it's amazing. But I just, I'm not the guy who's going to notice the difference in the texture on all those cans unless I'm...
Probably not. No, I'm more about design and
I have to put myself in that space when I review games, like, obviously. Like, I have to be there and I have to be like, well... 4 out of 5 for graphics because this and this and this. But most of the time, I'm just like, wee, video games!
I think when you review a game, you have to both... I mean, there's different sides to you, and you have to express all the sides of you, hopefully. The side that sees it the way other people are going to see it, and the side that's really more passionate about other kinds of things that make a game. That's how I go about it.
Yeah,
that's what I try to do when I have to review a sports game or something. Someone's got, there's so many questions now. Thanks, guys. It's hard to keep up with all of you, but I really appreciate it. Please ask as many questions as you can. Ninja President wants to know what's the best import game. Oh, we did that one. I'm sorry. Frog Boss wants to know, Carboni, now that you're streaming more with Rev3 Games, and we should plug that. Rev3 Games has its own Twitch channel now.
We do.
Started last week, right?
Yep.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
Now that you're doing that, do you prefer more a scripted show or live streaming? What do you think's more fun to do?
I am so like my background was always in acting and improv.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's kind of how I got into things, and so I like just being told, make sure that you get to this and this, but however you get to it is up to you.
Right.
Scripted stuff is fine. I like sitting down and figuring out how to get all of my feelings and all the things I want to say about a game into 2.5 minutes, right? Like I like that. It's a good challenge.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like just being able to go off the cuff and just talk to people and hang out. And there are pros and cons to both. I'm really excited that we're starting the Twitch channel because I just like hanging out and playing games, and I feel like it's a good way to just directly talk to people who are watching, which is something that you miss in a scripted show.
Sure.
So I kind of miss audience interaction, and I think that may just come from like the sort of theater background, but it'll be fun. I like, what I like is I like when I get to write my own scripts in the studio, because then I just put in bullet points for myself, and I tell the dude, and then I just tell the dude running the prompter to just keep up.
Yeah, I did an episode of Bite Jacker with you and Tara long time ago, and you were just making it up. You were just making up stuff.
Yeah. That's the best way to roll, I think.
Yeah. I saw a thing about John Cleese, or actually I saw a thing John Cleese did that you might like. I'll email it to you after the show.
Okay.
He talks about creativity and comedy, and it's stuff we know, but I've never really thought of it. I just have kind of felt it, but he puts it into words. That the best way to cultivate creativity and humor will usually come from that. is to be able to surprise yourself by putting yourself in a setting where there are no rules and you're totally comfortable and you're not being judged. So
Yep.
to get rid of anyone who's going to tell you that you're not funny or that they don't like you, and just be with them and wait for stuff to happen. That's how we did all the Monty Python stuff.
And that's hard to do on the internet because the internet is a big old ball of hate sometimes.
That's true.
You know, the internet is just a big old ball of hate. And I guess my addendum to that, and I'm really interested to watch it actually because I freaking love John Cleese. But my addendum to that would be like, yeah, put yourself in that comfortable situation, but understand that you're not always going to be in the comfortable situation, and kind of get the sort of get the sort of inner strength or whatever, or the self-esteem, the ability to love what you do enough that when the big old ball of hate comes out on the internet, you can just be like, fuck you, big old ball of hate. This was awesome. I had a good time with this, right. You know?
It's something I say a lot.
You're a positive dude.
Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I like to be positive. One thing I've noticed is that the people I usually don't like that much or like their stuff hate my stuff, which I think is the way it should be, you know? Like, I've used this analogy so many times, but Skeletor hates the work of He-Man. Like, right. Skeletor just goes on the internet after He-Man's done a video and has been like, you are just the worst. You're a talentless hack defeating He-Man like that. And that's a good sign. He-Man should be like, right, Skeletor hates me. I'm doing a good job. So when people who are homophobic or racist or just awful, who have terrible tastes in everything and everyone, hate stuff I do, I'm like, thank you. Yeah, I'll keep doing this then. So that's a good rationale.
And that's the easy part. I think the harder part is when somebody who does something you like or somebody you admire does not like or get your stuff. Like, that's the hard part. That's the hard part. And what I found is the higher the farther you go in the rank of whatever industry you're in, or the better you get at what you do, the more you're going to surround yourself by people who are also good at what they do, and you don't like each other's stuff, and you don't get it. Like, there are so many video game shows out there, or, internet shows where I don't like them and I don't get them, but they're popular. And when I meet the people who do it, you find that there's that common thread among everybody, which is they like what they do. They're very sure of what they do. They know where they're coming from and who they're trying to talk to. And you can respect each other's work. And you can,
absolutely.
And you can sort of talk to each other about what you don't like about each other's stuff. And it's not like, well, here's what you do wrong. It's more like, I don't really get this thing that you do. Tell me about this,
Right. Yeah,
that's my favorite thing.
I've never done that. I should do that next time.
You should do that. You should just walk up to people and be like, I don't get you. Just do it. Like, the next 10 people you meet on the street, just be like, hey, I don't get, why did you pick that guava, at the grocery store? Because clearly that's a terrible guava.
I wonder if I'm lucky, I'll grow and learn from that guava conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
So. Scotty Mofo Show wants to know, what games do you think are going to most change video games in the coming year?
I think we've seen 2 of them already.
Yeah? Which ones?
I think we've seen Fez, and I think we've seen Journey.
Yeah, that's a good point. I wonder. Fez, I feel like Fez already changed. The 16-bit thing I was talking about earlier. Yeah. I feel like Fez really led the charge on that without even really trying. People saw that. They saw that he was taking from 8-bit and 16-bit Nintendo, but doing it using that language in his own way, and now like everyone's doing it. So I do think that's going to be hugely influential in the download space.
I think two things that could potentially keep Fez from being as influential as it should be. Number one is Phil's personality on the internet, which he's pulled back from. And Phil is a great guy. Right. Phil is a great guy, but like we said earlier, the internet can be a big old ball of hate, and some people don't deal well with that. And he's one of the people that couldn't deal well with that, so he pulled back and he kind of made himself less public, closer to release. But I think people do. I've seen a lot of comments from people saying that they will not support him, which I think is ridiculous, but okay. And then the second thing I think is going to keep Fez maybe from being as influential as it could be are all the technical issues.
Oh, the bugs he's still fixing and stuff like that?
Yeah, I just think I didn't experience many of them. When I had Arthur on the show, he said that he had a lot of them, but nothing game breaking. But I've spoken to some reviewers and some people, you know, whose opinions when they put them out there are going to be very public to a lot of people, say that they had a lot of game breaking issues with Fez. So that's a bummer.
Sure.
Yeah.
Huh. That's too bad. I haven't experienced any of that yet. Hopefully a patch will make that all better. I hope he decides to put that on other platforms too. I know Xbox Live Arcade, that's the best place for it, but the best place would be everywhere.
He has a very weird thing about porting. You feel he's gone on record before saying like you put out a game for what you've designed it for, and then it's done.
Yeah, I know.
But it's weird because it's, you know, it did start off as a PC thing, so I think it wouldn't be too out there to think that we're going to see a PC release in a few months. I would kill to see it on the Vita, but I'm one of those people who now wants to see everything on the Vita. I'm one of those guys.
There's a lot of people like that. Yeah, I don't blame you for that. I talked to him about putting it on the 3DS a long time ago because I feel like that old school Nintendo audience. Huh?
I don't think it could do it without a major reworking of the graphics. Because it looks very simple, but when you look at technically how they did it, every cube of those islands is a solid thing. So it's not like you're seeing just a surface of that structure. Every cube within that structure, even the ones you don't see, are real. Was that the best way to do it? I don't know. I'm not a programmer. Like I said, I think talking math to computers is dumb. But that's the way they built it, and I don't know that the 3DS can do it. So I wonder.
It would be more of a storage space thing, I think, the eShop than a technical thing, because it's actually pretty powerful.
Fez is like 200 megs. Did you notice that when you were downloading it? It's like 200 megs. It's a small game. I was surprised.
Yeah, interesting. I think that's where a big audience for it is, though. So hopefully he can do that. I don't think he wants to, though. He's kind of turned off.
Dude, just sitting in my bed, like playing Fez before I go to sleep at night sounds like the nicest thing. You know, just on like a portable, and I'm like drifting off to sleep, and I've got that Disaster Piece music in my ears, and I'm just like, that sounds amazing.
For people who haven't played it yet, it's involving, but it is so not menacing. It's the least menacing game I've played in a long time.
It's all of the great unexplored exploration of NES games without that crushing, unfair difficulty level. You know, you don't have to worry about like, well, I think the hidden treasure chest is up here, but if I jump for it, oh man, I may die, and then I'll have to play through everything again. You know, Fez is not like that. Fez is like, go for the treasure chest, bro. See if it's up there.
And it also asks you to think about perspective all the time and how there may be more to something than you see initially.
There's a lot of deep stuff in there that goes underneath the gameplay that you see. Like, I'm currently in the midst of deciphering a language because of Fez, right?
Exactly. That's a New Game Plus sort of thing, right?
No, it's there from the get-go.
Oh, is it? Huh,
yeah, like all the little symbols that you see all over everything. And this is kind of a spoiler, but you're kind of going to get this feeling immediately when you play the game. Those little symbols on the signs and on the doors and everything, you can decipher those. That's a language. And if you start writing things down and trying to pay attention to what things mean, you'll be like, oh. Like, you've probably noticed that there's a sign that happens before you find every small jump gate. There's a little sign, and it's the same every time, and you're like, that means something. And so initially I thought they were words, like maybe they're letters. I'm not going to give too much away, but you could sit and just play around with this game in a way that you probably haven't played around with a game for a very long time.
I really hope people give it a shot.
I do too.
They do. We've got 7 minutes left, so I'm going to try to run through a bunch of questions real quick. If that's okay with you.
Sure.
Our Paper Cloud wants to know, when's the last time you felt an extreme emotional connection to the video game character, and who was it? Extreme.
So I'm the person who, whenever I play an MMO or something with a character creation thing, I make myself. I'm that guy. I'm the dude who tries to like make a guy who looks as much like himself and put himself into the world. So I can identify with a lot of game characters, but emotional connection to game characters usually takes the silent protagonist, which is not something we see as much anymore. Like I genuinely felt like when I saw Knights, I used to like Elliot was walking around and I used to put myself into Elliot's place. So I don't know that I've felt that profound emotional connection to people in a while, because game characters talk now and they have their own voices and they have their own motivations, you know?
Sure.
How
And
about you?
they're usually not in situations that are easy to relate with right away.
Yeah,
Wow.
exactly.
Yeah.
What about you?
Lone Survivor. I played Lone Survivor, and I related with that guy a lot.
Yeah, Jasper Burns game. That's a good
one.
game.
Yeah, he was originally going to be on the show this week, but he's sick. Maybe we'll get him on next week.
Get well, dude.
For people who don't know, Lone Survivor is a 2D survival horror game that's out now. I think it's $10. You get some bonuses with it, or you can buy the $50 version where you also get the same game, but like a 3D prototype of it and like a lithograph and all this stuff. So I bought the $50 version. Yeah, it's awesome. I can't wait to get it.
And he did he did some good Splash stuff before. Like go check out Soul Survivor was a Flash game of his that was really fun. And
he did that Silent Hill 2 remake, I think.
Soundless Mountain. That was one of the first.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that was really cool.
It proves a lot of stuff about game design that I think a lot of people forgot about, how it's still possible with very simple tools, with very simple design decisions to make you feel isolated, trapped, alone, and constantly vulnerable. Yeah, great game. I hope you can play it. I want to keep rocking. We got 5 minutes. Sleepy Guy asks, do you miss the big clunky buttons with the long push distance and sliding mechanisms of old consoles? I think I know. Does he mean like the on the Super Nintendo, how there's like a big purple thing you push to press reset instead of?
I think he's from an alternate steampunk universe. Is what it sounds like, where he's turning cranks and like eliminating valve pressure and stuff like that to play a video game. I think game controllers and interfaces are in some ways more clunky and slidey and weird than they've ever been. If you think about things like the 3DS and the Wii and the Move, and I think they're just getting stranger. If there's one thing I miss, it's kind of the simplicity of a Nintendo D-pad, you know. But you know, you can get that in portable stuff, and you can get that in most Wii stuff. I don't think much has changed. How about you?
There. I miss the aesthetic of this is not cool at all. Like it does make me feel a little weird sometimes to have to weed out who likes video games because they really like them, and who likes them because they like think it's gonna help them make friends and get somewhere in the entertainment industry. That's weird to me.
Which is a complete 180 from where we were when we were teenagers.
Exactly. The one great thing about being somewhat of a social outcast, for being the guy who brought the official Marvel handbook to the official handbook to the Marvel Universe to school every day to read at recess, and the guy who had like, you know, Nintendo Power cut out in his locker in high school. The one thing that was good about that, being so into video games and you couldn't really hide it and being into comics and stuff, is that you always knew that the people you were with were legit. They weren't gonna be phonies if they also couldn't help but be a nerd too. And now, you know, you go to a big Sony party and Danny Trejo is there, and there's people who are just there to meet Danny Trejo and pretend they like PlayStation, and like all these supermodels now, these like incredibly good-looking men and women who are like, I just want to be a video game journalist like you. I'm like, what? So that's really what I miss, is the clunkiness of video game culture in general. And now that it's like cool and slick, you don't always know.
I mean, there are two. The flip side of that coin is to really be accepted as kind of a culture and an art form, it just has to keep getting bigger, right? Yeah. So you can't really like. I see a lot of people that hold a lot of rage about how big it's gotten, and that sort of thing that you were describing. Like they're very angry about it, but you can't really be angry about it because you always wanted, when you were a kid, you were always screaming to the heavens that video games were cool, and you can't be mad now that people are listening. Right.
Yeah, I'm far from mad about it, and I
don't think you are. But I've seen a lot of people that kind of express that sort of dichotomy in the way they think about it, and I'm just kind of like, dude, this is what you wished for. This is the end of the Twilight Zone episode, right? Now you have all the time in the world to read. Sorry, your glasses are broken. You know?
Yeah, it's really It's far from bad, and people wouldn't watch my videos at all if there weren't now a culture around people liking people who like video games. So I'm grateful for that.
When I was a kid, if you wanted to host videos about video games, you had to be JD Roth, or you had to not host videos about video games. So I'm very happy that we're in the place that we're in.
What was the name of JD Roth? See, for those that are too young to know, it just didn't have TV.
He had the Nintendo Power TV show for a while.
Right.
That was what it was, and then it became called something else. I think he lost the Nintendo license, and they kept going anyway.
I think it was a game show too. Wasn't there a game show where like two guys played Double Dragon on the NES to see who'd get like a Bobo killed quicker?
Yeah. Like that? He had a bunch of weird shows. He was also the guy that was on that Funhouse.
Oh yeah.
He was like the hidden hero of like 80s and 90s TV, I think.
Yeah. I wonder where he is now. Thank you, JD Roth, for paving the way.
God bless you, JD Roth.
What? Nickelodeon Fury, speaking of 90s video game shows, Nickelodeon Fury wants to know Tony. Do you go by Tony, Anthony?
No, I don't.
No.
Only my family calls me Tony.
Yeah, I would never call you Tony. I wouldn't dare. Oh, and the show's almost over, so this is the last question. Tony, is Legends of the Hidden Temple rigged? You can be honest.
Nope, not rigged.
Thanks, Tony.
Rigged. Absolutely. The reason he's asking is I was a blue barracuda. And if you look for the episode on YouTube, The Legend of the Belly Button of Buddha, you can watch like 13-year-old me on Legends of the Hidden Temple play all the way through an episode.
That's the best thing I've ever heard. I can't wait to wow, because that was like a video game come to life. That game.
It was a magical experience. It really was, and it was not rigged by any means.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, I think our show's probably over. Thank you for being on the show. You can keep
thank
talking.
you for having me.
Oh, anytime. Yeah, you should just have this show. Do you just want this show?
No, I'm good. I think you're doing really well with the show. I think you should have your show. I think you should come out. You should come out to California more often and be on my show.
I'd love to be on your show.
Good.
Hopefully, we'll do that E3 thing. I hope
yes,
so.
I would love to.
Yeah, I gotta get my tickets ready. Yeah. Well, unless Conrad's wait.
Well, first Holmes was born, then he got fat, bald, and tired. Holmes.